In 2013, Cristian, a type 1 diabetic graphic designer, was going through a tough time. What started as a simple prayer to ease a pain turned into a journey through unknown dimensions. During this experience, he received revelations about the interconnectedness of the universe, spirituality, and the impact of human actions. In one of these dimensions, he felt something unexpected. The certainty that this place was his true origin, as if he had finally returned home. Hello, I'm Marcus, and it's a pleasure to have you here at Beyond the Life We Live. I hope you feel at home and absorb the lesson from the story we're about to share. By the way, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it's very important to us and helps bring more impactful stories to you. On June 31st of that year, after going to the cinema with his wife Fernanda, Cristian began to feel very ill, with intense chest pains and difficulty breathing. Initially, they went to the city's base hospital, where the healthcare system was on strike. After some basic tests, he was diagnosed with a urinary tract infection and sent back home. However, his condition drastically worsened overnight, with unbearable pain and a feeling of drowning even while breathing. Since there was no ambulance available at the local health center, he had to endure until 6:30 the following morning. There, a young doctor examined him and discovered that he was suffering from diabetic ketoacidosis, with only a 5 to 10% chance of survival. A terrible diagnosis. He was then placed in an observation room with beds, where his wife could only visit him occasionally. The doctor prescribed a treatment with IV fluids and insulin, as the subcutaneous insulin wasn't working. By around 8 o'clock, his condition started to worsen drastically, with intense pain, especially in his neck, which he describes as a sword of flames. Feeling that death was near, Cristian began to pray silently. During his prayer, he heard a voice telling him that it wasn't his day, but in a moment of defiance, he challenged the voice, stating that he wasn't going to die because he still had so much to do. The same voice warned him that if he fell asleep, he wouldn't return. In the midst of excruciating pain and difficulty breathing, everything suddenly went black, as if someone had switched off a light. At that moment, he instantly woke up in another place, without pain and breathing normally. He realized he was lying on a stretcher, motionless, but enveloped by a sense of unconditional love and happiness. He describes the place as indescribable. The environment was unlike anything he had ever experienced. He quickly returned to the hospital, and after that initial experience, Cristian began reflecting on the impact it had on his life. Despite being brief, he had experienced intense feelings of love and belonging that stayed alive in his memory. Even after returning to his body, something inside him had changed forever. However, the story was still far from over. Sometime later, back home with his wife, Fernanda, Cristian had another spiritual experience. One ordinary morning, he felt intense pain in his back and decided to say a simple prayer, asking for relief. After finishing the prayer, he began to feel a strange energy running through his body. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever experienced, a growing force rising up, generating such intense emotion that he began to cry uncontrollably. It wasn't sadness, but an overwhelming joy that seemed to fill every part of his being. As he was consumed by this energy, something happened. A bright white light slowly emerged, eventually filling the entire space. The light was alive and seemed to pulse with its own energy, but it didn't hurt his eyes. As soon as it touched the ground, Cristian found himself transported to another place, a space similar to what he had experienced during his NDE at the hospital. In this mysterious environment, he hears a voice that says, "You have many questions. Now all of them will be answered. Immediately, a colorful portal opened, formed by vibrant and indescribable colors that seemed alive and pulsating. Cristian was pulled into the portal and felt as though he were traveling through a tunnel of light at an extremely high speed. Upon exiting, he found himself in front of a magnificent nebula in deep space. He could see stars and galaxies with extraordinary clarity, feeling connected to the universe in an indescribable way. During this journey, he received information about universal laws and the interconnectedness of all things. He realized that any imbalance in one part of the universe could affect the entire interconnected system. Additionally, he saw a periodic table different from the one known on Earth, containing more elements beyond the usual 118. The voice explained that these additional elements would be crucial for humanity's advancement in higher dimensions. After the experience at the hospital and this second spiritual experience at home, Cristian began to reflect on the deeper meaning of everything he had experienced. He remembered that the telepathic voice explained that spirituality and science need to go hand in hand, as they cannot be separated. When technology develops beyond spiritual capacity, an imbalance occurs in the environment. With this, he understood that by entering that dimension, he had connected with the entire universe in a unique way. As if he could communicate with beings from other planets and galaxies, absorbing their knowledge while sharing his own. During his experience, Cristian realized he had passed through 24 different dimensions, interacting with each environment and connecting with the local beings. In the light tunnel between dimensions, Cristian would temporarily disconnect and reconnect each time he arrived at a new location. He could sense whether each dimension was more advanced or lower than the previous one, though he couldn't describe in detail everything he experienced. The 24th dimension was particularly special. Upon arriving there, he immediately felt at home, as if that was his true place. The sensation was so strong that he almost cried with joy, even though he wasn't in physical form. It felt as though he had finally found the place he had always searched for since childhood, when he would look at the stars through binoculars. In each dimension he visited, Cristian could measure the level of evolution of that place. One of the galaxies that caught his attention the most was on his third visit. It resembled the Sombrero Galaxy, with its distinctive colors in shades of blue and yellow. Cristian also learned that any disturbance in any sphere of the universe affects the entire system. For example, a nuclear war on Earth would impact even distant civilizations, causing a universal imbalance. This happens because everything is interconnected. Every grain of sand has a vital energy connected to the whole. The most curious part was that, upon returning, he was surprised to discover that only 3 minutes had passed in the physical realm, even though it felt to him like an eternity. This time, disparity made him question even more deeply the nature of time and reality. Back in reality, still overwhelmed by that intense energy and overwhelming emotions, he began to talk to Fernanda about everything he had experienced. While standing by the kitchen door, he heard again the telepathic voice saying, "Tell her that at the right time, she will do the tests and nothing will be found." Cristian and Fernanda debated the meaning of those words and all the experiences they had lived. This deep and transformative experience forever marked his life, bringing not only a new perspective on existence, but also revelations about the interconnectedness of different dimensions, the relationship between spirituality and science, and the role of each being in the great universal plan.